Does Bad Samaritan make for good cinema? Hello and welcome to RotD Review of the Day, and today I'm looking at the 2018 David Tennant movie, Bad Samaritan. My impressions while watching this were mixed, to be perfectly honest, and there's a few key critical components in this as to why I feel like it didn't work. And it's a little disappointing, mostly because there is a good foundation there. There's some good concepts, and you can see that inside this movie is a really great movie, ready to just trying to pop out, and it just doesn't do it. So to get into why and how and so on and so forth, let's get into the categories. As always, 4 different categories, each one worth up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points. And the plot of this one, I gave a 12 out of 25. The concept was excellent. The execution, not quite so much, in my opinion. And the plot of this one follows a young man who is an amateur photographer, struggling artist type that has a wicked kind of scheme going where he works or moonlights as a valet at a restaurant. When somebody comes up in a nice car, he'll take the car, hand them the ticket, they'll go and dine, and while they're dining, he will set their GPS for home, otherwise find out their address, go to their house since he knows they're out having dinner, robs the place of things that they might not immediately notice. It's not like he takes TVs off the walls. He goes into the deeper parts of the drawers and finds that little gold ring that somebody might, it might be weeks down the line before they even realize it's missing, and gets the car back before anything happens. And in this case, the movie kind of kicks off with him doing this to David Tennant's character, Cale. And when he goes to Cale's house and goes into the office, there he finds a girl that is bound, gagged, and tortured. Now he is facing a moral dilemma of, do I try and help her? How can I try and help her? I'm committing this illegal act, and the movie just kind of takes off from there, and it turns into a fairly interesting cat and mouse game. My big complaint with the plot, and I have complaints about a few other categories, but my big complaint about the plot is I think the balance of power between the two main leads was way too skewed. Cale, David Tennant's character, was very, it's not that he was 2 steps ahead, it's that he was 20 steps ahead, and it started to lose its interest and believability. That's ultimately where it lands. There are some subsections of that I'm going to get into in the deep dive discussion, but that's ultimately where I found a lot of the fault to be in this movie. So, 12 out of 25 for the plot. The intent, I'm not exactly sure what the intent of this movie was supposed to be. I saw categories when it was automatically, the metadata showed it was a horror movie. It really wasn't. I'm reviewing it for the sake of this channel because I already watched it, and I may as well. And if you're interested in watching it based on your metadata tags and it came up as a horror movie, you're wondering whether or not you should watch it, well, okay, I'll have a review video for it at least. It's not really scary. It kind of tries to be shocking, as some thrillers do, like Seven and so forth. Really didn't achieve that a whole lot as well. Really what it was just kind of moderately interesting, and wasn't a bad movie, but it just certainly wasn't a horror movie, despite all the places that I found listing it as, drama, thriller, and horror. It really just wasn't. So 9 out of 25 for the intent. Please bear in mind that I am not judging the intention of the movie as a piece of art. I am judging the intent of the movie, and that's the point of this channel, as a horror film. The point of the RotD review system here is to review a horror film based on its own merits, and that way a horror film that may be really cheesy and is very tongue-in-cheek may earn some good points with that. I think that horror films really stand out and deserve to be judged on, again, their own merit. So putting this one against that level of critique, I don't feel it held up. The acting. This is the principal reason that I chose this movie. I am a big David Tennant fan, and it's not just Doctor Who. I loved his performance in Jessica Jones, his PBS production of Hamlet with Patrick Stewart. I really think he's a very, very good actor, one of the finest that we have alive currently. And given that, I gave the acting 13 out of 25 points. It was average. And honestly, one of the things that drug it down, as much as I really hate to say it, and as much as I might get railed on by David Tennant fans, I really think that he was one of the portions of this that caused it to lose points. And it's not so much necessarily him. I'll explain in just a bit. The main character, Sean, played by Robert Sheehan, was very good. I actually really liked his performance. A lot of the secondary characters also held up very well. David Tennant's character of Kale, I don't know who decided this, but somebody decided that Kale should be American and should have an American accent, and they cast David Tennant, who, as phenomenal as of an actor as he is, surprise to me, he cannot pull off an American accent. It was terrible, and I honestly think that if, the minute he hit the set, or even the audition, or if he got kind of just fast-tracked through, he's a big name, let's add him to the movie. The minute the camera started rolling and they took that first take and he spoke, they really should have gone back to the drawing board. Well, let's at least make the character Scottish. It was bad. And as much as I love the amount of emotional range that he can bring to a role, this is apparently a very weak spot for him as an actor, because it was just terrible as far as an accent goes, distractingly so. So, I hate to say it, but 13 out of 25 points for the acting. The technical, I gave a 16 out of 25, had a very fine look to it, a good feel. Ultimately, it was a very professional production. Any of the blood and gore effects and so forth were very well pulled off. No real complaints on that level. It was a very passable, very well-polished movie. 16 out of 25 for that. So that gives us a very middle-of-the-road 50 points out of 100, which aligns with how I felt about this. There were parts of it that I found interesting, and those parts that I found interesting over time kind of wore a little thin. Overall, I would say this was an average thriller movie. It was not a good horror movie. So under the RotD review system here, 50 out of 100 points. I am not going to recommend this one to people. I'm also not going to dissuade them from it. You may hear that a lot. If somebody wants to watch it, by all means. But if you see it in your queue and you want to watch a good horror movie, I would pass it. I would pass it by. So I'm going to have a deep dive. We're going to get into a little bit more of the fine nitty-gritty points of this and how I think I might have, if it were me in the director's chair, I might have tweaked things, or honestly, it was some pretty major faults right at the screenplay level. So I'm going to get into those in the deep dive discussion. That will be full of spoilers. Other than that, I really appreciate you making me a part of your day, and next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and RotD.